And we are joined by Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland on our Newsmakers line. And Andy, as I'm speaking to you, I was just looking at Congressman McCall, who is a member of the House Armed Services Committee, and they have Kerry up there right now. They've got General Dempsey, and I can't see who the other witness is. But is there going to be a vote in the House on this? I hope so.
I have to tell you, Tom, I think they're going to be smarter than taking this to the House floor, because I think they wouldn't win the vote, and I think the president is going to attempt tonight to save face. Again, I would be surprised if this came to the House floor, because it is nowhere near having enough votes to pass.
So, first of all, what would go to the House floor? Something that he would propose, and the Senate is decided not to even meet. Because they were having problems there. So in order for the House to do something, they would have to have something to act on. Would that come from the White House, or would somebody craft a resolution in the House?
Someone could craft a resolution in the House. Of course, by our rules, we couldn't act on it until the third day. So it almost precludes anything being done this week. The earliest it would come is next week. But again, the president is so far from convincing not only Americans but Congress to vote for this. Our email and phone calls are running 98% to 2% against this action in Syria.
Well, apparently he would have to get an awful lot of Democrats who were opposed to anything to do with Iraq, whether it was simple or not, and would be opposed to any Republican effort to do anything, and who are very, very anti-war all the time. He'd have to get a great big majority of his own party to get it through, and it looks like they're not there, let alone the Republicans.
That's right. In fact, we had a meeting, actually a bipartisan meeting of people who are very skeptical of going forward at this time, this morning, early in the morning here. And the Democrats who attended the meeting indicated they think it would be hard for the president to get more than about 100 votes in the House at this point. So the president is not anywhere near convincing the House. And again, what I'm struck is that 98% of the people contacting my office are against this. This president has in no way, shape, or form laid the groundwork necessary to make this request to the American people. And it's his duty to lay the groundwork. If he wants to go to war, he has to convince the American public it's worth going to war over. And make no mistake about this, Tom, this is going to war. This is the military of one sovereign nation attacking the military of another sovereign nation. And with regards to boots on the ground, I hope everybody realizes in Pearl Harbor the Japanese had no boots on the ground.
They had none whatsoever.
This is an act of war. And we have to think long and hard and think of all the consequences before we essentially declare war on Syria, because that's what we would be doing.
Well, and from what I've seen in all of this, the American people are overwhelmingly opposed to it. It is a civil war, and John Kerry, again, is running around over in London yesterday, he's before our House committee today, saying it's only going to be a tiny strike, and that it's not aimed at regime change, but who else has weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East? Are we going to go around checking every nation now? And I don't even know if we know whether or not it was Bashir Assad who ordered their use.
Well, I will tell you, Tom, because I did, attend the secure briefings. I think the evidence is becoming overwhelming that it was Assad's forces that used it. Now, whether he gave the command or not, it's becoming pretty clear it was his forces that used it. But it begs the question, why is it the United States virtually unilaterally getting involved in this? President Bush, when he decided that Iraq needed to be we need to take action against Iraq, he lined up a coalition, and I remember because I was recalled to active duty at that time, and for the first few months, what he was doing was building up an international coalition that agreed that even the potential for Saddam Hussein to have weapons of mass destruction was a reason that it needed to be preempted. This president hasn't even gotten the international coalition when there is evidence that weapons of mass destruction were actually used. And that's a failure of the administration. It's the president's job to lead on foreign policy. Again, those polls that show a 3-2 against in the American public, I think they're even underestimating it.
Oh, I do too.
Every member I've spoken to has said, every single one, the calls are at least 10-1. And again, in my case, these calls are 40-1 and 50-1 against taking action.
Now, this is, he will speak to the nation tonight, but I just read something on the Drudge Report that his speech is being revised. And did you ever think, and I'm just thinking of him telling an aide, or not an aide to, but he was then the Russian where Putin is now, and he told him, tell Vladimir after my re-election. Well, I wonder why the two men aren't talking now. Did you ever think you'd see Vladimir Putin put up for a Pulitzer Prize, for a Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, maybe they'll just take it from Mr. Obama and give it to Mr. Putin. Because remember, in this case,
he did nothing.
It's the Nobel Peace Prize winner who actually suggested going to war, and it's Vladimir Putin who actually suggested, no, let's solve this diplomatically and let's, within international control over these weapons. I think the president's speech is going to be very different given what occurred in the past 48 hours. I think the president, my prediction, he will come before America tonight saying, look, I had to threaten the use of force. The threat of use of force has brought everyone to the negotiating table, at least temporarily, and I wouldn't be surprised if he actually called for Congress not to consider the request, not to go further with the president's request pending these efforts at controlling these chemical weapons. I think the president's going to try to make a silk purse out of the sow's ear, and he will have Mr. Putin to thank in the end for that.
Well, that is very interesting, and I must, while we have you online here, and I know you have to get back because it's a very busy time on Capitol Hill. In fact, I know he doesn't have the votes in the House, and he would lose in the House. It would be very embarrassing. In the House of Commons, frankly, they voted against it, and I think the Prime Minister Cameron did the right thing. The people of England spoke through their elected representatives and said no, and he said no. Prime Minister Merkel, no. These weapons should not be used, but we will not take part in any military engagement. And he was winding up saying that the coalition, Kerry the other day, started talking about the coalition getting bigger. People who support us or people who are against the use of chemical weapons, sure, 53 nations will respond. But as far as coalition and people going with us, you can count the fingers on your hands, and you don't have 10 people with us on doing anything. And nobody in Europe except the French, and now they're saying slow down.
Look, I agree with you, and here's the hazard, because with regards to weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East, the real 900-pound gorilla in the room is that Iran is developing the ultimate weapon of mass destruction, a nuclear weapon, and the president. The president is going to have to deal with this during his presidency because Iran will develop this capability during Mr. Obama's presidency. And I am not at all encouraged at the way the president has handled this weapons of mass destruction episode, given that he is going to have to deal with an even far greater, far more direct threat to the United States, which is Iran developing a nuclear weapon. And that is right around the corner.
Well, they can't be allowed to develop one. It's that simple.
I agree, and the president is going to have to, now the president's going to have to do a little catch-up work because, what he's done is I hope he hasn't poisoned the water with regards to the American public and America having to take action against weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East because the real threat to us is that Iranian nuclear weapon, and in the end, it may be that we do have to take action against Iran.
Absolutely.
If they do it. And I would hope that the American people will realize that that's different from this instance. Interference in a civil war is different from interference with the development, the mad mullahs, developing a nuclear weapon that could be used against the United States.
Well, and Israel could do it, but they could only do it if we had two carrier groups sitting in the Persian Gulf. And if Israel did it, that could set off another whole set of problems in the Middle East. If the capacity of Iran and they get close to that nuclear bomb or they get it, it should be the United States of America backed up by about 40 other nations who go after it and get it. And you know what? Congressman, there's going to be a collateral damage there, but the damage that a nuclear device that they could do, whether it would be a suitcase type, whether they could get it delivered somehow, is just unbelievable. And the world cannot allow them to have, it's that simple. The world cannot allow them to have an atomic bomb.
That's absolutely right. And the president, like I say, he better start laying the groundwork now, because he didn't lay the groundwork for Syria, and we are going to need that groundwork when Iran develops that weapon.